Let's confront an uncomfortable truth. People lie far more often than we'd like to believe, and it's not always strangers lurking on the edge of our lives. Sometimes the deception comes from those closest to us, a friend, a partner, even family. We convince ourselves we're good judges of character. We trust our instincts, our experiences. But here's the bitter lesson I've learned. We don't always miss the signs because they're invisible. We miss them because we choose to. We look the other way. We explain it away. We trade clarity for comfort. I speak from experience. There was a time when I thought I had it figured out, until I realized someone I deeply trusted had been lying to my face for months. The signs? They were there, plain and sharp. A sudden shift in tone, a rehearsed excuse, a flicker in the eyes. But I ignored it because facing the truth meant facing the collapse of something I wanted to believe in. The Stoics taught us it is not the truth that hurts us, but our resistance to it. Lies, no matter how small, corrode trust like rust on steel, quietly, persistently, and without mercy. And unless we're willing to see clearly, to listen deeply, and to question bravely, we will be blind to what stands right in front of us. So today, we tear off the veil. If you're ready to step out of illusion and into reality, here are 7 unmistakable signs that someone is lying to you, signs that most people overlook. Some of these may hit close to home. That's okay, the truth often does. Let's begin. 1. Defensive, without cause. When a simple question turns into an accusation. Have you ever asked a question so harmless, so ordinary, that you didn't even expect a reaction, only to be met with a firestorm? You ask someone, "Hey, did you send that email?" And suddenly their tone shifts, their eyes widen, their voice rises. Why would you assume I didn't? You always think I'm the one who forgets. I'm doing my best, okay? Wait, what just happened? You weren't attacking. You weren't blaming. You simply asked a question. But what you got back wasn't a response. It was a defense mechanism, a shield, a sword, a carefully rehearsed explosion designed to make you question yourself. And it works because now you're on your heels. Now you're wondering if you crossed a line. Now you're apologizing for even asking. Let's stop right here. This moment, this exact moment, is where truth either dies or survives. Because what you've just witnessed is one of the most telling behaviors of dishonesty, getting defensive without reason. Stoicism teaches us to remain calm under pressure, not because we are weak, but because truth requires stillness. The one who reacts with intensity is often the one with something to lose. I remember being on a team project years ago. There was one person, charismatic, articulate, always with a story to tell. But every time we checked in on progress, he'd erupt. "Why are you micromanaging me? I told you, I'm working on it. You don't trust me." At first, I took the bait. I backed off. I didn't want conflict. I assumed I was being too controlling. But eventually I realized he was hiding. The work wasn't getting done. The updates were vague. And the defensiveness? It was not passion. It was fear. Fear of being seen for what he wasn't doing. The innocent man does not fear the question. Seneca. That's the paradox. People who are truly being honest have no need to flinch. If you ask them something, they'll answer. Calmly, directly. Even if the answer isn't perfect, they offer it with clarity, because they have nothing to protect. But those who are guilty, those who are weaving a narrative, live in constant alert. Every question is a threat. Every inquiry feels like the beginning of an interrogation. So they go on the offensive. And we, out of politeness, out of fear, out of habit, retreat. But here's what I want you to remember. Defensiveness is not proof of your aggression. It is often proof of their insecurity. It's the wounded ego's last stand. It's the liar's hope that you'll feel guilty enough to walk away from the truth. And it works because most people don't want to be too much, and they don't want to poke the bear. They'd rather avoid discomfort than risk a reaction. But avoidance is fertile ground for deception. A Stoic doesn't chase conflict, but he also does not fear it. He does not shout, but he does not whisper when clarity is needed. He stands firm in calm observation, and he asks again, quietly and without apology. So the next time someone lashes out over a simple question, pause. Don't respond to the outburst, respond to the pattern. Ask yourself, what are they protecting? What truth are they afraid might surface? What kind of relationship am I in if asking for clarity is met with resistance? Because if the people around you make you feel like the problem for simply seeking the truth, then it's not you that's out of line, it's the dynamic that's broken. It is not the question that creates the wound, it is the wound that fears being discovered. Stoic reflection. Defensiveness isn't a reaction, it's a map, a signal. And if you learn to read it, you'll stop being confused by words and start seeing the truth behind them. So ask again, calmly, patiently, relentlessly, and let their reaction reveal what their words cannot. 2. Quick to change the subject. When an honest question becomes the unanswerable, let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to speak your truth gently, honestly, only to feel the conversation slip away like sand between your fingers? You bring up something important, a question that's been living in your chest for weeks, a doubt, a concern, a vision of the future that needs clarity. But before you even finish your sentence, they're gone. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally. They've already shifted the topic, already moved the goalposts, already found some trivial thing to talk about, what to eat, what to watch, what to do later. And you're left holding the weight of your own words, alone. At first you think maybe they're distracted. You tell yourself maybe it's not the right time. You rationalize maybe I'm being too intense. But Stoicism teaches us to question not only others, but our own tendency to avoid discomfort. Because avoidance is the enemy of truth. I used to be the person who let it slide. I was in a relationship where this happened constantly. Every time I brought up something real, where we were going, how we handled conflict, what I needed emotionally, the conversation would drift. And the way it drifted wasn't loud or obvious. It was soft, sneaky. A joke, a smile, a comment about something completely unrelated. At first I mistook it for light-heartedness. But over time, I began to realize they weren't light. They were escaping. And the worst part? I let them. Because I didn't want to push. I didn't want to be too much. I didn't want to lose what little comfort I had. But here's what I finally learned, through pain and introspection. Peace built on denial is not peace. It is prelude to betrayal. When someone consistently changes the subject the moment you approach a difficult truth, that's not just a bad habit, it's a signal. It tells you that they prioritize comfort over courage, avoidance over honesty, and control over connection. We often think lying is about saying something false, but the truth is, some of the most corrosive lies are the ones never spoken. They live in silence, in diversion, in every moment someone steers away from what matters most. You see, people don't always lie with words. Sometimes they lie by refusal. Refusal to face the truth, refusal to engage, refusal to meet you where the truth lives in discomfort. And what do? We cooperate. We allow them to steer. We let them guide the ship into shallow waters, because the deep end scares us too. But a Stoic life demands more. It demands that we remain anchored in the truth, even when others drift. It demands that we observe without judgment, but also without denial. So, the next time someone diverts the conversation, especially when you know your question was real, sincere, and necessary, don't chase them into small talk. Don't follow them down the rabbit hole of distraction. Stay still, present, say nothing, Let the silence speak. Sometimes silence makes people more uncomfortable than any question, and in that discomfort you'll see the truth emerge. Because when someone refuses to stay in a conversation that requires truth, they're showing you who they are. And when you choose to stay unmoving, calm, clear, you're showing them who you are. If someone tries to escape the truth, do not chase them. Simply remain with it. They may run from it, but you must not. Inspired by Marcus Aurelius. 3. Body turned away from you. When the body says what words dare not admit. Words are easy. We learn to shape them from childhood, bend them, dress them up, weaponize them, romanticize them. But the body is ancient, honest, incapable of deceit for long. And so, when someone is lying to you, or more accurately, hiding something from you, you may not hear it first in what they say. You may see it in how they sit. Picture this. You're talking to someone, they're responding, maybe even smiling, nodding, maintaining polite conversation, but their body is turned slightly away, their torso angled toward the door, their feet facing the exit, their shoulders leaning back not toward you, but away. Subtle, easy to miss, but unmistakable once you know. I once had a friend like this. Warm, outgoing, funny, but every time we got into deeper conversations, anything emotional, anything raw, his posture would shift. His words would stay where they were, but his body would not. He'd tilt slightly, cross his arms, angle away. At first I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he was uncomfortable in his chair, maybe he just had a long day. But the pattern kept repeating. And as a student of the Stoics, I began to observe more and assume less. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of truth." But sometimes, to see the truth in others, you must look without at their behavior, their patterns, their posture, because the body is a traitor to the lie. Eventually I learned that friend had been keeping things from me, not necessarily malicious, just things he didn't want to face, things he didn't want me to see. But his body already knew that the truth about physical distance. It always reflects emotional distance. You cannot fake closeness when your limbs want to flee. You cannot fake trust when your spine leans away. You cannot fake presence when your body is already halfway out the door. And yet, most of us ignore these cues. Why? Because we don't want to see what they reveal. We'd rather focus on someone's words, on their stories, on their tone, on the things they say to reassure us. But words can lie. Words can be trained. The body rarely rehearses. So when someone turns away, whether just a few inches or almost fully, you must not look away from what that means. It might mean discomfort. It might mean resistance. It might mean guilt. But whatever it means, it's real, and that makes it worth noticing. A man can lie with his mouth, but if he lies with his body, he is already at war with himself. Stoic reflection. And don't mistake this for paranoia. This is not about suspicion. This is about attention, the most stoic of disciplines. Paying attention is not aggression, it is respect. Respect for yourself, respect for the truth, respect for what is not being said. When someone turns their body away during a difficult moment, when they physically begin to create distance in the middle of emotional closeness, that is not random. It's not just how they sit. It's a signal, and you have a decision to make. Do you lean in, pretend not to notice, and continue the script? Or do you pause and say, "Why do I feel like you're pulling away, even though your words say you're here?" That kind of question takes courage. But courage is the only path to truth. So here's what I've learned. If someone turns their back on the moment, on the hard conversation, on the shared vulnerability, they're showing you something. They may not say it aloud, they may never admit it, but the truth is already there. In posture, in space, in distance. Truth may whisper, but the body always speaks in full volume. Epictetus, if he lived today. So stay present. Watch the feet, the hands, the torso, the shoulders. Are they facing you, or are they facing escape? Because trust doesn't lean away, honesty doesn't turn its back, and someone who values the relationship won't need to twist their body away from it. And if they do, don't ignore it. That movement, that tiny shift, it may be the most honest thing they've said all day. 4. Over-polished details. When a story is too smooth, it is no longer real. Have you ever listened to someone tell a story so perfect, so smooth, that it felt unnatural? The details are vivid, the timeline is flawless. The emotions are placed like props on a theatre stage, every gesture, every expression, rehearsed with precision. It's the kind of storytelling that makes you think, wow, this person is impressive. But then something inside you stirs, something subtle, something ancient. A whisper, a gut feeling, and it says, this is too clean to be real. Let me tell you something hard-earned from experience. Truth is rarely that smooth. In life, honesty stumbles. It hesitates, it forgets, it loops back to correct itself. Because truth comes from memory, not from a script. And memory, like life, is messy, imperfect, full of awkward pauses and unclear edges. I once knew someone, we'll call him Jake. Jake could spin a story like a screenwriter. Whenever we asked him about his career, his deals, his achievements, the man could weave a tale worthy of a Netflix drama. He once described a business negotiation so cinematically complete, with a high-rise skyline, a firm handshake, and a contract signed at exactly 11:59 p.m., that we were all captivated. But slowly cracks appeared. When someone asked a follow-up question, Jake would blink. His answers wouldn't quite line up. New versions of the same story emerged. And the deal? It didn't exist. He hadn't closed anything. He had just polished a lie so well he made it easier for us to believe it than to confront it. Here's the Stoic lesson in this. Liars understand human psychology. They know we prefer coherence over complexity. They know our minds crave stories that tie up neatly, like the final scene in a feel-good movie. They rely on our exhaustion because it's easier to nod and smile than to question and probe. But we must not be lazy with our perception. We must not trade truth for entertainment. The man who seeks truth must grow comfortable with discomfort. Marcus Aurelius, paraphrased, when a story is too clean, too crafted, too beautiful to question, question it anyway. Here's why. The over-polished story isn't just a lie. It's a tool of control. A lie told with elegance is meant to guide your mind, to lead your attention where they want it to go, so you never look where the truth is hiding. It's like sleight of hand. They dazzle you with one hand, while the other slips the truth under the table. And worse, we often want to believe them. Why? Because truth is messy. It's complicated. It requires effort, and effort is rare in a world addicted to ease. But as Stoics, we choose what is right over what is easy. We don't let someone's charisma override our critical thought. We listen deeply, we observe patterns, we ask second and third questions, because real truth survives follow-up, lies unravel under scrutiny. And that's exactly what I did with Jake. I began asking for specifics, not confrontationally, but curiously, and every time the answer got murkier. The polished surface cracked, revealing the chaos underneath. And once you see the cracks, you can't unsee them. The liar seeks applause. The honest man seeks clarity. So, here's your compass. When someone tells you something that seems too perfect, don't be enchanted. Be alert. If their words sound rehearsed, if the sequence is too cinematic, if the conclusion ties up like the end of a speech pause, ask yourself, are they telling me the truth or selling me a version of reality they want me to believe? Does this story serve clarity or does it serve their image? Can they repeat it with the same detail days later or does it shift? Because truth is not afraid of imperfection. It is not afraid of mess. It welcomes questioning, welcomes detail, and survives contradiction. But a lie is fragile. It must be protected, manicured, kept under glass. One wrong question and the whole illusion shatters. Perfect is the enemy of honest. When the truth walks into the room, it limps, not dances. Stoic reflection. So next time someone gives you the kind of story that sounds like a TED Talk, don't clap, don't smile, lean in, ask more. Let their reaction reveal what their story tried to hide. 5. Laughing off serious topics. When laughter is not joy, but an escape. Have you ever opened your heart just a little, only to be met with a laugh? You say something that took courage to speak aloud. A feeling, a concern, a quiet truth that's been living under your ribs for days. And the person you're talking to laughs. Not a joyful laugh, not a laugh of connection, but the kind of laugh that lands like a deflection, like a shield thrown up in haste. You say, "I've been feeling distant lately." They respond, "Haha, you're overthinking again." You ask, "Can we talk about what's really going on between us?" They chuckle, "You're so dramatic." And just like that, the moment dies. Not because it didn't matter, but because they killed it with a joke. Let's be clear, humor is not the enemy. The Stoics themselves understood the importance of levity, but there's a difference between humor that relieves tension and humor that avoids truth. The latter is dangerous, because it creates a false sense of peace. It convinces you that nothing is wrong when everything inside you says otherwise. To laugh is human. To laugh instead of facing reality, that is cowardice. Stoic reflection. I learned this the hard way. I was once in a relationship where I tried again and again to talk about what mattered. My needs, my fears, my doubts. But every time the response was wrapped in sarcasm. A smile, a joke, a quick, nervous laugh followed by, "Relax, why are you being so intense?" At first I brushed it off. I told myself maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I just need to lighten up. But over time I realized that laughter wasn't for me. It was for them. It was a tactic, subtle, disarming, to avoid accountability. Because if they turned everything serious into something funny, they wouldn't have to answer. They wouldn't have to change. They wouldn't have to show up for the discomfort that truth requires. And I played along because challenging the laughter felt like ruining the moment. I didn't want to be the buzzkill. I didn't want to push too hard. I didn't want to make things awkward. But here's what the Stoics teach us. Awkward is not the enemy, dishonesty is. Because what starts as a laugh often becomes a habit. And soon every serious conversation becomes impossible. The moment you try to speak from the heart, they turn it into a punchline. And, if you're not careful, you'll start shrinking. You'll stop asking. You'll stop saying what needs to be said, not because you lost your voice, but because they taught you that it's not welcome. And that's how trust dies. Not in shouts, not in fights, but in jokes. In shrugged-off pain. In uncomfortable truths turned into laugh tracks. Who mocks pain reveals his fear of it. Seneca, if he had Instagram. So what do? You don't have to argue. You don't have to get dramatic, but you do have to stay grounded. The next time someone laughs off a serious topic, try asking one question. Why is that funny to you? It's simple, direct, and it exposes everything. Because if their laughter is genuine, they'll tell you. But if it's a mask, if it's armor, they'll flinch. They'll stumble. They'll redirect. They'll laugh again, only this time it won't feel so natural. Here's the deeper Stoic lesson. True connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is not always pretty. Sometimes it's heavy, sometimes it's raw, sometimes it's downright uncomfortable. But if someone cannot sit with that, if they must laugh away the depth, then what they're offering you isn't love, or friendship, or partnership. It's a stage, and you're just part of the audience. Joking in place of truth is not kindness, It is evasion in costume. Stoic reflection. So don't let humor become a wall. Don't let a smile become a silence. And don't let someone laugh their way out of every serious thing you try to say. Because if someone can't sit with what matters, can't stay present for the hard conversations, you have to ask yourself, what exactly are they hiding behind the joke? 6. Conclusion. Lies don't always come in the dark. They come in silence, in laughter, in a beautiful story that you dare not doubt. Let's not sugarcoat it. Lies are rarely shouted. They don't always arrive wearing a villain's mask or with obviously false statements. No, some of the most dangerous lies come dressed in kindness, in a joke, in a comforting tone, in a casual shift of conversation, in a story that's just a little too perfect, or in the vague, foggy phrases that promise more later but deliver nothing now. And that's why most people miss them. Because lies rarely demand attention. They survive precisely because we don't. We choose not to ask. We choose not to press. We choose not to look too hard because we're afraid of what we'll see. It is not the lie that blinds us. It is our refusal to open our eyes. Stoic reflection. Let's revisit what we've uncovered. When someone changes the subject the moment discomfort arrives, it's not distraction, it's avoidance. When someone listens only to respond, not to understand, they're not in dialogue, they're in defense. When someone becomes defensive without cause, they're not protecting the truth, they're protecting what they fear will be revealed. When the details of a story are too polished, too cinematic, it's probably because they were written, not lived. When their body turns away, even if their words stay engaged, it's because something inside them wants to escape. When they laugh off the serious, they aren't light-hearted. They're scared. Scared to go deep, scared to be seen. And when you ask for clarity, and they give you vagueness in return, that's not being private, that's being strategic. That's control wrapped in politeness. You see, lies aren't just told, they're performed. And the liar often doesn't look like an enemy. They look like a friend, a lover, a partner, a colleague, even yourself. Yes, sometimes the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves. It's probably nothing. I'm just being paranoid. If I ask, it might ruin things. But let me say this clearly, directly, without ambiguity. If asking for the truth threatens to ruin the relationship, then the relationship was already built on something false. The Stoics believed in radical honesty, not just with others, but with the self, because clarity is the foundation of wisdom. And without clarity, there can be no virtue, no trust, no peace of mind. So how do we apply this? You don't become paranoid. You don't start treating everyone as a liar. That's not Stoicism, that's suspicion. That's fear masquerading as awareness. Instead, you become quietly alert. You listen deeper than the words. You notice the patterns, not just the promises. You remain calm, but you remain conscious. Because honesty doesn't hide in laughter. It doesn't fear specifics. It doesn't flinch when you ask questions. It doesn't require you to shrink, to be polite, to stay silent. It stands still. It holds its ground. It invites the light. So here's the bottom line. If someone consistently avoids the truth through charm, through deflection, through fog, through performance, then it's your responsibility not to follow them into the illusion. You don't have to fight them. You don't have to prove them wrong. You just have to stand with the truth, even if you stand alone. Because truth is not always comfortable, but it is always solid. It is always clean. It is always still. And in a world full of noise, lies, and carefully performed personas, stillness, silence, and clarity are your weapons, your compass, your freedom. They may hide from the truth. You must not. They may twist their stories. You must keep yours straight. They may leave. Let them. You stay with what is real. Final Stoic reflection. Stay sharp. Stay honest. And above all, stay unafraid of the truth. Because those who love you, respect you, and walk with integrity, they won't run from it. They'll meet you in it, always. 7. Vagueness. When pressed for specifics, when ambiguity is a fortress for those who do not want to be found out, there's a certain kind of silence that wears a disguise. It doesn't come with confrontation. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't even deny anything outright. Instead, it floats, it hovers, it avoids, it circles the truth. You've met this kind of silence before. You ask someone a simple, reasonable question. What happened with that deal? Where were you last night? Who was that person you mentioned? And what you get in return isn't a lie. It's worse. It's vagueness. Oh, we're just talking. It's not really a thing yet. You know, just figuring stuff out. No names, no dates, no details, just fog. Just enough to satisfy the surface, but never enough to let you see what lies beneath. And most of us, out of habit or fear or exhaustion, let it go. Because pressing further feels rude. Because we don't want to seem needy. Because we were taught that good people don't interrogate. But here's what Stoicism teaches us. Truth doesn't fear precision. When someone is being honest, they don't need fog. They don't need evasive language or poetic diversions. They don't need to buy time with vague metaphors or corporate speak. They just answer, clearly, directly, without performance. Who cannot be specific is not hiding ignorance. He is hiding intent. Stoic reflection. I once had a co-worker who was a master at this. He'd talk endlessly about major projects, potential deals, exciting conversations. But every time someone asked, who's the client? What's the deadline? How far along are you? The answers blurred. Oh, you know how these things go. Still in early stages. Can't say too much yet, but it's big. Weeks passed, then months, and it turned out there was no project. No client, just smoke, and we were all breathing it in, thinking it was oxygen. Here's the dangerous part. Vagueness works because it sounds just close enough to the truth to keep you from asking more. It satisfies just enough curiosity to stop your pursuit. And liars count on that. They count on your politeness. They count on your desire for harmony. They count on the fact that you'd rather live with ambiguity than cause discomfort. But a Stoic doesn't confuse peace with passivity. We don't press for the sake of ego, but for the sake of clarity. Because relationships, whether romantic, professional, or familial, can only survive on clarity, and clarity demands specificity. So the next time someone gives you a foggy answer, resist the temptation to nod along. Ask again, gently but directly, what do you mean by talking? Can you be more specific? Was it vowed? When did it happen? If the story holds, the details will come. If it doesn't, they'll scramble, they'll shift, they'll accuse you of being difficult. And that's your confirmation. Because here's the truth. Vagueness is not confusion, it is strategy. People use it to buy time, to avoid accountability, to keep you emotionally invested while revealing nothing that could hold them accountable later. And when you tolerate it, you are teaching them that ambiguity is enough, that you will stay in the fog, that you won't ask for light. If you are afraid to demand specifics, you are not in a conversation, you are in a performance. So don't be afraid to disrupt the script. Don't apologize for asking. Don't feel guilty for wanting the truth in full color, not grayscale guesswork. The people who value honesty won't resist your questions. They'll welcome them, because they know that honesty without clarity is just another kind of lie. Truth speaks in straight lines, lies bend into curves, inspired by Marcus Aurelius. So next time you hear vague answers, don't settle. Response sounds like fog. Keep walking forward until it clears. And if it never does, then you have your answer. They weren't offering you truth. They were offering you distance disguised as conversation. And a relationship built on that is no relationship at all. So now you know the signs, the shifts in tone, the polished stories, the nervous laughter, the silence wrapped in too many words. But knowing isn't enough. The real question is, what will you do with it? Because seeing the signs means nothing if you still choose to look away. And the people who lie to you, whether with their words or their avoidance, don't always need to be exposed. Sometimes they just need to be left behind. You're not here to become suspicious. You're here to become clear, to train your perception, to sharpen your awareness, to honor your peace by refusing to live in illusions. The Stoics didn't chase drama. They didn't go hunting for betrayal. They simply refused to build their lives on anything that couldn't stand in the light. So when you sense a lie, pause. Stay still. Let the discomfort reveal what words won't. And then, without anger, without fear, without noise, choose truth.